Great question. Last question. This is it, man. No pressure, no pressure.
I just want to thank all of you for coming out. It's been a very enlightening and fascinating night. And I know I'm not the only one when I said, Bill, you helped foster my love of science at a very young age. I was hoping Dr. Greenspoon could elaborate on, and anyone else who has an opinion on it. It seemed that you felt that there wasn't any good to terraforming Mars, and I was wondering why you thought that and how you approached that idea.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think that it's a bad idea to terraform Mars in the long run. It may not be, in fact, it may be a good idea, but I don't think we should try it yet. Fortunately, we don't know how to do it really yet. We have some ideas, and people have done some models, and it's a good intellectual exercise. It's valuable that we're thinking about it for the reasons that I try to express. But first, we have to figure out if there are Martians or not. If there are, and there may be, and especially underground, there are, the Martian surface is a pretty hostile place right now, certainly for our kind of life, but at some level underground on Mars, there's water, liquid water probably, and well, we have good evidence that there's ice, and as you get deeper, it's hotter, and there could be something living there. If I had to place my money, I would say there probably isn't, but we don't know that, and certainly there's good reason to believe there was life in the past, and we don't know what it did when the surface changed. It could have gone underground. So ethically, we have to really be careful that we don't
violate the Prime Directive.
Violate the Prime Directive. Do something horrible. But I would also say that if we discover that Mars is lifeless, then there's a pretty good argument that the ethical imperative switches around, and then it's actually our responsibility, ultimately, you could say, to bring lifeless places to life. Because if there's a vacant lot next door, why not plant a garden? And if we care about life, and I care about life, I want life to survive, then life ought to be on more than one planet. Because if it's only on one planet, then you've only got one lifeboat, and if it sinks, you're in trouble. But if it's on more than one planet, then life has a much better chance of persisting. So right now, we don't know enough, but in the long run, we'll both know how to do it, and we'll know if it's a good idea, and it might be.
People have done analyses of this problem. I did work on it about 10 years ago, and as far as we know, there's not enough nitrogen on Mars to support a biota of the scale of the Earth, which is possibly one reason that if there is a biota there, it's not very big and it's hidden, is because there's not enough nitrogen to support a large biota. And of course, you have to hide on Mars right this minute because it's bombarded by high energy particles, because the atmosphere doesn't have enough mass to protect the surface. You can't warm the planet very easily. If you think you're going to warm it from adding carbon dioxide, for example, you're already at near toxic levels of carbon dioxide on Mars now from animals. So you might put enough CO2 there to stabilize plants, but then it'd be toxic for people. And even if you added the CO2, you probably couldn't warm it up very much. So right now, as far as we know, the raw materials are not present on Mars to really terraform the planet in the way we commonly think of it. But I'm sure that we will have terraformed it in the next century, and there will be people living there, will be living under bubbles, they'll be living in ice caves, so we'll be living there, and we'll just be in small colonies until we can figure out some way to bring in the resources to do something bigger.
Piece of cake. I always say, if you want to terraform Mars, go live in Antarctica for a year. In the dry valleys. Crazy cold, no water, apparently very few microbes. It's just a whole other thing. You guys, this has been just a lovely evening. Thank you all. I'm really good Thank you for sticking around. Very much appreciate your support. Give that Planetary Society brochure on the way out, and let us, dare I say it, change the world. And one more hand for the scientists.